Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah, and I wanted to welcome all of you today to another installment of Monologue Monday here on my YouTube channel. If you do happen to be a returning viewer to this series on my YouTube channel, thank you so much for tuning back in. If you are new here, thank you for your interest, and I hope you can take something away from this video. With all that being said, let's get into this installment of Monologue Monday. So for this week's episode of Monologue Monday, I wanted to make a sort of follow-up to last week's episode where I basically talk about different types of tangible and intangible things that I've been able to acquire since getting serious with my personal finances. So if you are curious about different things that I've been able to acquire, I really suggest you check out that video as well. But for this episode here, I wanted to kind of discuss the different skills that I've personally adapted within the last, few years here that have really helped me get, to where I am financially, be able to have the tangible things and the intangible things financially that I've been able to acquire in the last few years here. So the first skill that I think a lot of people should adapt if they are looking to augment their self financially and stay on a productive financial track is the ability to do successful product and service research when they're in a position to make some kind of purchase. One thing that I've gotten really good at is basically doing a deep dive into any kind of realm, basically, if I'm looking to buy a product. A good example that I can think of personally is what I'm looking into right now, the camera. And I do reference my camera quite a bit in the last few episodes here, but this is a really good example of where, I needed to decide on what kind of camera to purchase for making, different content on YouTube and recording different projects that I wanted to work on for my own self, right? So my own personal projects. So I basically looked at everything that was on the market currently with all different price points, and I looked at, what was included in each of them, what kind of longevity they might have, what type of comparisons they have to each other. It was a very, very long process. It probably took at least 2 weeks of doing research pretty much every single day to finally land on the camera that I am speaking into right now. And I can happily say that I don't regret doing all of that research in the slightest. Now, what the skill of being able to do your own research is really going to translate into is probably a few different things, but the most important thing that I can think of is cost saving over time. So when you do productive research, right, and you find the best option that's going to work for you for the long term, right, not just 1 year, but 3 to 5, maybe even 7 to 10 years down the road, depending on the product, it's going to save you money over time inevitably, right, because you're not going to have to constantly keep renewing the product. Because the first product that you bought maybe went out of style, or the efficiency of it isn't as good in the long term, or maybe the quality of it isn't good in the long term either. Another example that I can kind of think of that might resonate a little bit with you are vehicles. And, this is no surprise because we live in a vehicle dependent society. This is just the way that it is here in the United States, unfortunately. But knowing this, there are a lot of individuals, if not everybody, who will get to a point sometime in their life where they'll have to buy their own vehicle, right? If you haven't already. And basically the short story here is that I've done a lot of research as far as what vehicles are good, why they're good, what are bad, and why they're bad. And I continue to do this just because I have free time on my hand and I like doing that kind of stuff. And what I see online on social media and posts and so on are people posting what kind of vehicles that they're buying and looking at and driving and so on. And I cannot help but sit there and honestly cringe a little bit, because if they would have done any amount of research, maybe just a few hours of research into the vehicle that they have bought, they would probably see that it's really not going to be a good long-term investment, financially, and probably for their stress as well, because a lot of these vehicles just tend to fall apart, and what happens is you get insecure about driving places because you don't know if it's going to make it there, and you also get insecure about your finances because you're dumping money into these assets, these depreciating assets that keep requiring maintenance and fixing and so on. So the short story with this example is do your research. Be able to spend a lot of time looking at all of the products that are available, for the given thing that you're trying to buy. If that's tech, if it's a car, if it's, clothes, whatever it is, do your research and actually decide if the option that you might find appealing initially is going to be good for the long term. Now, the second skill that I've implemented into my life and that has really helped me not only financially, but in other aspects of my life as well, is having self control. Now, obviously within life, we want to have self control with a lot of different things. I'm not going to touch on all of those, but for this video, having financial self control is absolutely huge. And the example that I can think of off the top of my head is caving in or not caving in to marketing. We live in a world where the average person, I think, sees over 100 different advertisements throughout the day, every single day of their life right now. And, it's no surprise that a lot of people will succumb to these ads, right? The algorithm will work in just the right way where they'll see an ad and they cave and they buy whatever product it is. A lot of ways that this work are basically, these companies will throw in some kind of celebrity, athlete, pop star, singer, like actor, whatever it is, right? And they'll have them talk about their product for 10 or 15 seconds, pay them, $1 million, say thank you, and they'll publish this commercial, all over the internet, all over your phone, your computer, whatever it is. And in hopes that you will look at it, want to be like this person, like this athlete, whatever it is, and buy the product. And, I don't know exactly, what everybody's expenses are looking like, but from looking at, different clients' expenses and talking with them about certain expenses and so on, a lot of times these expenses tend to be relatively frivolous in that they saw an ad for it, they saw a viral video on it, thought they wanted it or thought they needed it, they buy it, and then they never use it, or it's a piece of shit product, whatever it is, right? So that's one example of not succumbing to these ads, right? To the marketing that is basically all over your phone, your computer, flyers, walls, wherever it may be. There is another aspect of self-control that I think is important to develop, and that's having the ability to say no to frivolous financial obligations that you might have with family, friends, and acquaintances. A good example that I can think of would be, if a group of close friends or mutual friends, whatever it is, they're trying to meet up and have a night out. The night out's going to be at some expensive dinner, whatever it is, and it's $300 or $400 or $500 per head. You need to have the ability to say, to sit back and say, what, my money is probably, better spent elsewhere. I'll go do a $10, $15, $20 endeavor, but a $300, $500 dinner seems a little bit frivolous to me. I'm going to, stay back and do something else. So the short story here with self-control is basically don't cave into things, right? Have a little bit of, self-control. If you're looking at ads and you might think that you want something, don't buy it unless you really need it, or unless you really need it and it's also a good product. So loop in the first skill of doing your research here as well, and also saying no sometimes to different frivolous activities that acquaintances or mutual friends might want to do is also great as well. So now the third skill that I've been able to implement that has really helped me is being able to basically kind of look at yourself in the future. So a lot of people, in my personal opinion, only really look at their life within, a week span, a month span, maybe a year span, but it's never, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. And this is understandable, right? There's a lot of things going on in everybody's life, and it gets really cumbersome to start trying to predict where you're going to be or where you want to be. But I cannot help but argue that it's an extremely important aspect of, having personal financial success, especially if you're looking to do, relatively larger things with your life. A personal example that I do want to share for this is basically, I kind of alluded to it, or I mentioned it in my previous video. But it's a recent financial endeavor that I've taken on. I've purchased a plot of land back in Wisconsin, and one of the dreams that I've always had, as I mentioned in the video as well, last week's Monologue Monday, was creating or building, designing my own conceptual house, and using it as my personal playground, as well as allowing others to rent it out short term and see my personal idea of what a near perfect house would be like. So the key skill right here, right, is to envision something that you want in the future. In this example, this is basically breaking ground on this project that I want to take on. The other part of this skill is recognizing where you are right now. So knowing where your finances are at, knowing how much you can invest, how much you need to be investing, how much you can save, how much your expenses are going to be in the next year, and so on. And then basically building a bridge or imagining a bridge that's going to link the two. So I'm not going to go into all of the numbers and so on, but the way that I see it in this example is that being able to break ground on a project like this is probably going to be, $40,000, $55,000 just to start. So it's 2024 now. I've kind of envisioned that by 2027, I will be able to basically throw money at this project. And, you know, this is something that this is my own plan, right? So everybody's plan is going to be slightly different, but you need to be able to develop this type of forward-looking thought process to be able to kind of envision where you want to be, where you are now, or understanding where you are now, and then trying to link the two and determine what needs to be done in order for you to reach that goal. So the short story here is, don't be afraid to dream big. Think about your future, think about where you want to be, and work on getting there as best as you can. Now, the fourth and final skill that I think a lot of people should start implementing into their day-to-day routine can simply be put as being able to read the room. And, obviously there's multiple implications for this, but for this one, we're going to speak financially. And this basically is a skill that allows you to be able to look at a financial situation and then make basically read the writings on the wall and make a educated decision on what direction you want to head in. So a good example that I can kind of think of on the top of my head here, being it that it's we're going into a new year here as well, are annual raises / bonuses. Generally speaking, at the end of the year, shortly after the new year begins, you're going to meet with your manager, meet with your boss, whatever it is, and you guys are going to go over, a bonus or a pay increase or a, salary increase, whatever it may be. And what you need to recognize at that point is if this, rate increase or whatever it is equivalent to, what inflation was in the previous year. Let's say it's the beginning of the new year and you meet with your boss, manager, whatever it is, and you guys are reviewing, your pay increase. And they say, hey, Noah, we're going to give you this much extra money, annually moving forward. Congratulations, good job, whatever it is, right? Ideally, a lot of people aren't so lucky in this scenario, but for this example, let's say that that's the case. And I say, hey, thanks so much. This is great, whatever. And when I actually reflect on it, I find out that my new pay rate, or my new salary didn't quite keep up with inflation, right? Inflation was 5%, and maybe my raise was only 3%. What this basically means is that if I want to live the same type of life that I did in the previous year moving forward, I'm going to have I'll have less, basically. I'll have less buying power, so I'll have a lesser quality of life than I previously did, meaning I would have technically taken a sort of pay cut. The flip side of this is if you get the raise and you think about it and you do the math and it actually matches what inflation was for the previous year. This basically means you have the exact same quality of life that you did the last year. So this is where, considering these two examples, you need to sit back and kind of think. You need to ruminate on your self-worth, right? Or at least financially, you need to be able to sit back and say, well, my raise didn't yield what inflation was, so technically I have technically I'm kind of getting a pay cut here. Is that really what my work is worth? Is that really what I want for myself? And, the other example of your pay increase actually matching inflation, what this basically means, or what you'll need to think about is, do I Sure, I have the same quality of life, but do I deserve more? Do I deserve at least a little bit more than I did the previous year? So this is where you need to sit back, read the writings on the wall, and move in a different direction if you want to. Ideally, right, the increase in pay or the raise that you're getting is it matches inflation and then gives you a little bit extra, right? That is the ideal scenario, but unfortunately, not a lot of individuals in the grand scheme of things are on that path. So the lesson here is to basically understand what your finances mean and then decide as best as you can what option you need to take to make sure that you stay on the financial track that you want to be on. So there you have it. That is going to conclude my list of 4 skills that I've personally been able to implement in my life that have really augmented my life both financially and personally as well. And of course, I do want to mention if you are in a position where you're looking to augment your financial standing through financial analysis and personalized budgeting, that is exactly what I do here at AFA. If you have any questions about the financial services that I can provide to you, I've left my email and a link to my company website in the description box below. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much for your time today. I greatly appreciate it. And I do, of course, want to hear from you. Do you have any other skills that I didn't mention here that you've been able to implement that have helped you financially? Please leave them in the comment section below. I'd love to hear them. With all of that being said, thank you so much for your time today and happy financing.